What's the most toxic community you've been in? Certainly not League of Legends. Last time I played I got tons of helpful tips on how to uninstall the game and kill myself. One of the neighborhoods I get posts from, someone noticed the youth rehab center that they thought was moving in. There were dozens of posts of people who wanted to protest it, stop it from moving in, because oh my god there will be criminal youths being released on the streets. Then there is one person who points out that it is a teen mental health clinic focusing mainly on eating disorders and had been there for 10 years. They were just renovating. Did not stop the NIMBYs. Now they were on about school shooters. I live in a small city in Southern California. It's kind of a bedroom community. Quiet, clean, safe, boring. Average age of the residents is probably low 60s. Typically the older retired types around here are definitely upper middle class with a net worth well into 7 figures. Anyways, I've lived here for years. I live in the more blue-collar section of town. It's boring but I like it and the schools are good. Then I checked out next door and was stunned to see what a bunch of petty, racist, obnoxious, self-absorbed, narcissistic assholes live around me. It's not just a small group. I've really tracked what's going on there and been an internet warrior to get messages deleted and people banned. It's several hundred individuals and they are pure fucking cancer. It's particularly egregious right now with the vaccine push and the California recall. What insufferable assholes. Depression and anxiety groups. It's filled with covert narcissists and it's just a competition about whose life is worse off and who had the real right to feel depressed and anxious. Everyone talking about their healing journey and foregoing thoughts about anyone but themselves and their own personal journey. I try a new one every so often to see if there are normal people in them. But so far, nothing. My theory is that every group whose goal is to ultimately be able to leave the group and carry on with your life will eventually be dominated by people who are against achieving the goal. This seems to affect mostly self-help groups but also student organizations, beginner language learning groups, etc. etc. This is simply because all people who are capable or interested in achieving their goal will eventually leave and those that remain are the people who are more interested in their social status within the group than with achieving the goal of leaving it. And to justify their position, they start to agitate against the actual objective. It's kind of an adage to the old observation that each group has people who work for the goal of the group and people who work to preserve the group. And eventually, the second faction will always usurp the group till nobody is left who really cares about the group's goals. It's just a lot worse with this kind of self-help group. So I was in a girls group, not a mommy group, just a group for women to chat and be themselves without guys, and this woman was pregnant and asked if we thought it would be okay for her to continue vaping while pregnant because she needs it for her anxiety and it helps calm her down. Now I have anxiety. I understand the need to calm it down, so I was trying to hold off on judging her. So I told her to speak with her doctors and not a FB group because medical professionals will be the ones who can give her a clear answer. She said, but I need it for my anxiety and I think it will be fine. I responded saying, okay, my original statement still stands. Talk to your doctor. And then all of a sudden I couldn't comment or post in the group anymore. Turns out she was a mod and put a 7-day shadow ban on me. Then when that expired she did another one. She wasn't looking for advice, she just wanted someone to say, oh yeah, keep using an addictive substance without consulting doctors while you're pregnant, that will be fine. So yeah, I can only imagine how actual mommy groups could be. In extension to this, parenting groups forums. They're usually mainly moms, I'm a dad, and boy does the toxicity get high in those. Not breastfeeding? You're doing all these things wrong and you're a horrible mom. Any complaint about a dad? Husbands are useless and do nothing. Dad bringing up concerns about mom, for example not caring for their child, etc. You don't understand what she's going through and you need to be a better dad. My kid has autism and I hate autism moms. Autism is just one part of who he is. He's funny, sweet, incredibly smart, loves animals, etc. I'm a proud mom. I feel like these people are the same ones to constantly complain about how hard it is. Look. Things can be really tough sometimes, but any parent had rough days. Your kids can sense when you feel they are a burden. Trust me, I know exactly how that feels. I just hope every day that I'm making him happy. If I can manage that, then my life hasn't been a waste. Oh man, that's amazing to hear. So happy you've found some people to relate to. I joined a mom's group on here the year my son was born, June bumpers or something like that. The people in the group that were from my state country all formed a group chat, and it felt nice to be able to speak to other adults every day going through the same thing. Sometime when the babies were about 4 months, it was apparent my son was incredibly high needs. 2 people in the group couldn't understand that and eventually called CPS on me. I can only assume why. Maybe they couldn't possibly see how I was struggling so much. I don't know. It ruined me. Took a really long time to get over, and I still find myself not sharing my parenting ways with others unless I feel safe enough with them. Wasn't really planning on offloading that word vomit here, lol, sorry. Thanks if you've made it this far. Here's my major issues with them. Everyone argues about who they ship together. Now, personally, I don't care about the romance in MHA because it's not why I watch the show. I don't care who likes what characters together either. But the way the fans argue about it is so toxic and gross. The amount of adults that sexualize the teenagers in the groups is disgusting. And it's not OMG I simp for Bakugo or Deku is so hot. It's disgusting, vile, basically pornographic stories of what they as a 30-year-old would do to the kid. As a woman, I felt unsafe. I can't even count the amount of times I have had some raging dude who was mad I didn't agree with them on something harass me to the point they find all my socials to harass me on them. One guy even ended up getting my phone number and left vile voicemails. I've joined groups and whatnot for so many different game shows, books, and sure, there's always going to be some bad apples. But the MHA community just can't be civil adults and talk about the show. They have to be gross about it. Large groups of moms. No matter what, it's going to end up toxic because whatever you say is going to piss off someone. Someone is going to feel attacked for everything. And a dozen things others say is going to set you off. That's the nature of the beast though. Each opinion is going to be a strongly held conviction, because you're literally raising a child by it, and if you choose differently because that doesn't work for you, you're invalidating something someone believes strongly in. Some groups get around by having everyone be radically supportive of all choices, but then a few banned topics happen because they cause a lot of drama, and that ends up making people feel alienated. There's also no room for nuance because it's hard to explain all the decisions in their context, and it's easier to just be like, I believe this, and end of discussion. I don't know if this can be helped in any way tbh, other than just finding a small gang who you are in agreement over the big things, so all those choices are humanized. I'm a new mom myself, and I see how small disagreements on strategy even with friends can make people feel attacked. Like this friend has 2 kids and mom dad and kids all sleep on the same bed. So if one wakes up, they all wake up. She proudly says she hasn't slept longer than 3 hours at a time in the past 4 years. My first instinct is to be like, hey, you don't all have to sleep on the same bed. Sleep is important. And there, I've just made her feel attacked. Or this other friend was trying to be helpful and told me to sleep train my kid, otherwise they will push your buttons and you'll never have peace. My first reaction was, how does a 6-month-old know to manipulate you FFS? But I chilled out a bit and remembered her kid is very demanding and needs too much patience, and this was the only way she got some rest, and my child was exhausting in a more fun way, and I enjoyed putting him to bed with songs and stuff, so I didn't need conventional sleep training. Corybus have always been wild to me. They will spend hours of their day streaming their preferred group's music and watching those groups' videos to get stream counts and views up. They gather together in these forums to essentially worship these pop idols, posting and hoarding idols' pictures, scrutinizing and overanalyzing idols' every move. They construct entire romantic fantasies in their head where they're dating or married to some pop idol. They refer to their idols as Appa and Unni despite not themselves being Korean. They make contrived references to their pop idols in completely unrelated contexts. You could be watching a video on how to fry an egg and there will be some comment like, who's here because Jungkook looked so cute frying an egg, haha. All this in the pursuit of some strange parasocial obsession that they have with pop stars who wouldn't look twice at them if they passed on the street. Corybus also have a tendency to fetishize everyday people of Asian descent to further this parasocial obsession. They can't have Jungkook Appa in real life, so they try to approximate it by finding some guy of Asian descent to date just because he looks 1% similar to their preferred idol. I do like some pop. I don't think it's particularly musically unique or revolutionary, but I listen to and consume K-pop when I'm in the mood for well-produced music that just sounds good, even if it's completely cookie-cutter and more or less uninspired. But I don't tell anyone I like pop, because I really don't want to be associated with the average pop fan. I recently worked with a guy who was born in Korea, but adopted and raised by a family in the USA. He absolutely despises K-pop for this reason. He has a hard time because many women will approach him and immediately express romantic interest, solely due to his Korean heritage. They openly compare him to their favorite K-pop idols and even encourage him to dress or act like them. Sometimes they'll go this far before even meeting in person. It really disgusts him, and rightfully so. The My Hero Academia community. Being a girl and into anime is an issue itself. The MHA community takes it to another level. My teenage sister is really into MHA as well. We actually dressed up and went to a con together. Was fun at first, but once we hooked up with the MHA crew it got bad. Like guys lifting up my sister's dress, dudes taking creep shots, a couple guys even followed us into our room. And that's without the constant purity tests and other bullshit we went through. I don't think people fully understand what a shitbox Twitter has always been. It started as smart and or funny people just quipping smart and or funny things. It then sort of started to be a place for less technical netizens to express themselves in a low-calorie way. But it very quickly became this grotesque cutesy PR-driven machine of a small group of people desperate for attention all following each other and commenting on their own detritus. This made it a natural hangout for the attention machine of celebrities all stoking each other's attention machines, which made it very much resemble Paul Klee's twittering machine that it was named for. It really was on its last gasp and companies were making some lowball efforts to acquire it. Then suddenly politicians led by Trump realized it was the best way to deliver idiotic content, less political opinions, and it became overwhelmed by a political circle jerk quickly followed by armies of bots astroturfing the world with utter crap. It always has been and always will be a garbage replicating dumpster fire. I think the conclusion after reading all the posts is that all communities are a little toxic due to a minority of people. I'm a stand-up comedian in New York City, and parts of the comedy community can be toxic, but you can also find some good people and friends. Any kind of showbiz-related thing that depends on self-marketing is going to have some shitty characters. When I was a bartender, I worked downtown in a small city, and pretty much everyone knew each other if you were in the service industry. It could have been a reality show with all the drama that went on. Life pro tip: if someone is talking shit about everyone you know, they're also talking shit about you to everyone else. It was tedious, but I miss the regulars, just not the community. Edit. This has got me thinking about those days. This is a lava lamp my friend Jay, who also taught me how to bartend, did once on a slow night. It's a martini glass with a Bartol on top, 2 pints, 2 rocks, then doused in rumplements from the top and set on fire. It was cool because after the alcohol got burned out, the sugar crusted everything together. He wasted like half a bottle. We just put it on the spill tab. I lived in a small rural town for nearly 2 years after college. I shared a small backyard with my neighbor, who was basically the town gossip. She was constantly telling me, unprompted, stories about how crazy the town was. The mayor was an abusive alcoholic who secretly knocked up his best friend's, a local middle school science teacher, wife. The police chief was a corrupt, wife-beating cokehead, and how it seemed like everyone was either cheating on or had been cheated on by their so. Every time I went to the local bar it was like clockwork that by the end of the night there would be a fight that had something to do with cheating. It's funny you say it was like a reality show. The whole time I lived there I felt like I was in some sort of Jerry Springer-inspired Truman Show, and it couldn't possibly all be real. Westerners in Japan. Japanese society has a well-earned reputation for being cozy and nurturing to those born into it and able to fit into it, but cold and impenetrable to anyone not born into it. Forging real, deep, lasting human bonds with the locals is challenging for any foreigners there, and somewhat maddeningly, is easier the less globally compassionate and principled one is. So Westerners who've chosen to call Japan home are not only, for the most part, starved of deeply validating human relationships, but have learned to absorb and reflect the cold and judgmental attitude most locals treat them with. And so they are bitter and nasty to each other, and have constant pissing contests over who Japan's better, which is a laughably sad way of compensating for the fact that almost none of them have their presence and unique beauty really welcomed or appreciated by the locals, no matter what they do to try and fit in. Pile on another stone when you realize that many of them were never that mentally healthy or socially well adjusted in their home countries in the first place. I've been to a lot of countries and hung out with a lot of expats in each. In none have I seen anywhere near the level of negativity and toxicity that I've seen among Westerners in Japan. Definitely agree with this. I'm a Westerner living in Japan myself, and while it is of course difficult sometimes due to language and culture barriers, I love it here and I'm happy with my life here. However, trying to join any kind of expat community is a nightmare, and I now actively avoid any life in Japan content from other Westerners, because the community is so negative and judgmental. It permeates the experience so much I worry about becoming like these people, and I don't want to. I just want to get on with my life, which happens to be taking place in this country. Looking for any kind of assistance or advice is such a crapshoot. Any kind of question or discussion is set upon as another opportunity for people to flex their superior knowledge or complain about the country nobody forced them to move to. The insecurities and misery are so obvious in the eternal judgment of every other foreigner's job, relationships, pastimes, etc. It's so tiresome and unhelpful. Japan is not for everyone, and that's understandable, but God help you if you don't toe the official Japan expat line and spout the accepted opinions about the place that everyone is supposed to have. And that goes for both the Japan is Utopia and Japan is Hell on Earth camps. Ditto for sure. I found this particularly bad as a foreigner in Japan who was looking for a particular job which happened to be in Japan rather than what many foreigners seem to be, which is people looking to come to Japan and happening to find a job here. In the first case, my experience, you get unexpectedly thrown in the deep end as it's a hard place to be an expat compared to many places. In the second case, people who really wanted to come to Japan, it seems there's a lot of unrealistic expectations and purity testing which either get smashed, and they get bitter, or amplified, and they get insufferable. Very few normal long-term gaijin. Barrel racers, a long post, but worth it. Emo. For those of you unfamiliar with the above term, barrel racing is a rodeo event in which a, typically, female rider, teenage in this story, pilots her steed around 3 barrels, attempting to achieve the best time in that day's event. Here is a video so you can see what the event entails. This will be a long post, cause I feel like painting this experience in specific detail. I grew up on a farm around horses. So when I was in high school I hung out with that crowd. In this crowd were farm boys and ranch kids. Hicks is a generally applicable term. Then there were the girls. Specifically the rodeo girls. Necessary knowledge, anything with horses requires money. Even a low-budget horse person is still spending a lot of money to meet the needs of a horse. Then you need a truck and trailer if you want to take it anywhere. Then if you were doing something fancy, like, I don't know, rodeo? Then you spend a ton of money on a nice saddle, things to make your horse comfortable and pretty. Accessories galore. Long story short, there is lots of money spent so that young Josie can pilot her horse around some barrels and maybe win a few $100s if she is the fastest. In many cases, these girls are well funded by mama and papa. Okay, back to the story. When your hobby entails you bossing around a 1000 lb plus animal, this makes you pretty confident. You are also bound to get stepped on, kicked, and injured at least a couple of times. This makes you tough. Pride is also a large contributing factor. When these traits are instilled in a teenage girl, along with competitiveness, adrenaline, and daddy's checkbook, they can be a lot to handle. But they can also be dangerous influences on high school-aged young men, who are primarily hormone-driven. Couple that with the fact that 75%, this is a real statistic, of all horse girls are moderately, if not substantially attractive in one way or another. Now the stage is set. These girls are all drama and two-faced shit-talking. The more money you have and the nicer stuff you have, the more likely you are to be envied. The more cocky you are, or the faster you are, the higher on the drama totem pole you sit. Some of these girls are generational barrel racers, so their family has the brand new platinum level pickup pulling the horse trailer that is human living quarters, and equine living quarters. I digress. The boys who follow these girls around like puppy dogs? Some of the lucky ones are dating one of the girls, but some of the more unfortunate ones are essentially unpaid labor as they agonize in the friend zone. But the loyalty to their favorite gal is present in either case. If my girl has beef with your girl because my girl is jealous of your girl's $4,000 saddle her daddy just bought her, well guess what? I therefore share my girl's beef with her and therefore you. It didn't always get nasty. Most of the time it was just petty drama, spreading rumors and shit-talking. But sometimes it did. One occasion I remember, someone had their trailer tires slashed, maybe some tack, horse equipment, went missing. Minor conflict, occasionally a fight or shouting match. In the case of the 15-18-YO males, sans critical thinking or adequate decision-making skills, fueled by hormones and piloted by the head nod on their shoulders, shit can get ridiculous. The universal rule. It was understood by everyone that you never messed with the horses. They were holy in this community. Actually, they were the one thing that was capable of making people put aside their differences. If a horse became seriously injured, everyone was able to come together and help each other in most cases. If a horse developed a case of colic, medical issue that can be deadly to a horse if not treated, medicine was shared, even across enemy lines. Overall it was just drama, drama, drama. Petty shit that rarely amounted to much. Except the one time that it did amount to much, very, very much. When you have a bunch of high school-aged rodeo kids whose social atmosphere is that of what has been described, there is a potential for an individual to become out of touch with how to act normally. It just takes the one person with issues for something bad to happen. This is what happens. SFW. Sure, what happened may not have been a direct result of that toxic community that I experienced, but it was something I experienced while in that community. I knew her on a surface level, she was a sweet girl. Anyways, there is a glimpse into the toxic community I was a part of in high school. I drifted away from that community in the end, but I do credit that part of my social history for teaching me some valuable lessons. TLDR, there is a rodeo event called Air Racing that is popular with teenage girls. The girls are cocky adrenaline junkies who want to be the best. These girls are real shitty to each other, and the young men who chase them hand out with them get involved in the drama too. It is a teenage cesspool of hormones, pride, jealousy, cockiness, money, competitiveness, rivalry, and horse shit, literally and figuratively, when someone killed someone. Briefly, the American Girl doll franchise online fandom community whatever. Half of it, or more like 2/3, I guess, was a creepy Christian fundy-dominated, simultaneously casually obliviously and deliberately pointedly bigoted. This is my doll Caitlin, she wants to grow up to be a creation scientist and have 11 kids. Type of deal. The other major faction, the niche tolerant of adult eccentrics who weren't necessarily white cishet Christian fundamentalist women with daughters niches, was led by cranks of the opposite extreme variety, insanely progressive in the worst ways. Think the worst of early mid-2010s Tumblr social justice ridiculousness multiplied. These people would put the most woke semi-mainstream folks today to shame, with a dash of 1970s-esque Weimar Republic anything goes left libertarian extremism in some ways, if you catch my drift here. Oh, and funnily enough, both factions not only politicized the hell out of this line of dolls in historical children's fiction designed to educate and empower preteen girls, but both were viciously critical of crafting, sewing, knitting, crocheting doll outfits, making accessories, whatever anyone did for their own dolls. Not only on that basis, it's appropriative, historically inaccurate, or demonic inappropriate, but also just on the basis of being hyper-judgmental about the quality aesthetics. That's something they had in common. Toxicity completely off the charts, ultra catty, backbite why, drama-filled. If you just wanted to enjoy the hobby and indulge your inner child as an adult fan collector and make amateur little crafts for your dolls, it was guaranteed somebody in one or more likely both all of these noxious cliques would have a major problem with it. I'm halfway convinced American Girls is the recruiting arm of some cult, the way it operates and the crowd it attracts. What you said reminds me a bit of the fandom surrounding Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House book series. They're a special bunch. I'd summarize by saying that Lila's work, while highly entertaining and educational, blurs the line between history and fiction in a way that bothers me on principle, and her fans seem to have inherited her knack for blurring the line between fantasy and reality. The fanfic about the Ingalls and Wilder families is quite the rabbit hole, and can only flourish because there are no living descendants of this family left to reign it in and defend their ancestors' reputations. To be fair, the show did have them actively trying to fix the damage they did, and when it doesn't excuse that, it showed they did try to change, with Rose being the trigger. They're not forgiven, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be given a chance and become better. For example, Yellow healing and repairing gems used in the cluster experiments, them healing the corruption, and White letting everyone use her powers in reverse to let out feelings. But yeah, most of the issues probably stemmed from the whole reverse character arc thing Pink had going on, where the bad sides were shown last and therefore made people end up hating her. Honestly, it seems more like her actions, while not excusable, were needed to lay foundation needed for Steven to change things. I don't think they'd ever listen if Pink wasn't involved in some way. The fandom is absolutely no excuse nor justification though. They're just plain toxic. That's the thing though, the show's entire backdrop is fighting against these literal genocidal space rock Nazis. It's disgusting to redeem them in a single episode at the end of the series. Like Avatar showed Zuko as better than most of the Fire Nation and showed the Fire Nation leaders as just regular people, but the actual leaders like Oze and Azula outright refuse every opportunity to be better. Fuck, the only ones who actually redeemed himself before Zuko were Zhong and Iroh, both of whom were outright hated by their society. There's layers and nuance to this, where Azula and Oze had to be stopped from their totalitarian expansionism. In SU it's just hey, they are space Nazis until they suddenly aren't. I just feel it's a horrible message for LGBT+ youth that hey, these people want to kill you for just existing, but you can win them all over with a song and dance. I feel like a better take would have been to have Blue defect and be punished by White. Yellow broaches the topic of reform and is shattered, and it's the masses turning against White which saves the day, with Blue going out of her way to start to heal the damage, even though some wounds, like corrupted gems, will never fade from the war they fought.